so good to see everybody here. I'm so thankful for everybody showing up. Thank you so much. So, my name is Fadhouli, and a few years ago I got a job offer I could not refuse, but it meant I had to relocate to a tiny town in Idaho called Sandpoint, a town of 6,000 people. But you know what? If Sandra Bullock can move to a tiny town in Texas and parlay that into getting swept off her feet by Harry Connick Jr., then surely the same thing can happen for me in Idaho, right? Okay, sorry guys, technical difficulties, hold on. I actually have Sandra Bullock getting swept off her feet by Harry Connick Jr. here, and it's not showing up. I also have some fabulous lumber sexuals with flowers in their hand too, and that's not showing up either. Yeah, I'm just gonna paint it for you. What?
You have to point over there.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
Is that one?
I don't think this is me. On. Oh, yay! Let's get your look. Fabulous lumber sexuals. Okay. So, here was the plan. I was going to move the most important thing to me first, which was my closet. I had 2 years, according to this company, to relocate everything. So, first things first, closet, and then provided I meet Mr. Right, I could move my furniture and the rest of my belongings to Idaho. So here we are. This is the view from my window, lakefront condo, fully furnished, fabulous. The front door is over here. The view that you see was over here. And it's moving day. And the boxes are coming in fast and furious. And they're filling up the guest bedroom and the guest bathroom, which is over here. They're whizzing around me to get to the master bedroom and master bathroom. And at some point, the movers start running out of room. And so they look at me and they're like, so, where do you want us to put everything else? And I was like, okay, I don't know. How many more boxes do you have? Trying to level set. And they look at the clipboard, and the head mover guy is like, we have 6,000 pounds on the truck. And so my first thought was, that's not all my stuff. I can't have 6,000 pounds of stuff. It's not possible. Oh, but it was. So I had 6,000 pounds of clothes, shoes, handbags, belts, rings, bracelets, necklaces, scarves, hats, you name it, I had it. Did I say handbags? Because I know I had a ton of those. Yeah. So, I had 1 pound for every resident of Sandpoint, Idaho. And if you want to slice it and dice it differently, I had the equivalent of 1 African forest elephant, 2 Toyota Corollas, and 3 of these babies, 3 Texas Longhorns. Yeah. So I have to say I couldn't wait for the movers to get out of there because I had a million things running through my head. First things first, what if I got eaten by a bear? That was my first thought. What is my poor little mother going to do with 6,000 pounds of clothes, shoes, and accessories? Like, what kind of legacy am I leaving, right? Thought number 2. I had wanted to invest in real estate, I had wanted to write a book, I had wanted to get involved in human trafficking organizations. Hadn't gotten around to any of that yet. Those boxes were a manifestation of everything I had gotten around to. Not my proudest moment. But then, just like that, I had a thought that lifted a weight off my shoulders. And I'm not saying Morgan Freeman descended from the heavens or anything to give me this message, but it was definitely a divinely inspired moment for me. And the thought that I had was this: you can stop running now. And this is what that meant. Somehow I lost perspective on my life. I had been chasing my self-worth, just chasing it. And here's the thing, you can't catch it. Self-worth is something that's just included. It's kind of like when you move into an apartment and there's basic cable. It's just part of the package deal. It just is. But for me, I just lost it. Maybe I didn't ever really realize how I had it. But in that moment, I knew all I had to do was to believe it and accept it. And that's what I did. And that was step 1 for me in this journey. And the next thing I realized was that the most important person I was there to meet in Idaho was me. So, then I realized I had to get to work. Like literally, I had to get my butt to the office because this was Monday morning and there was no more time for Eat, Pray, Love that day. So, my next step, do the opposite of what I had done back home. So I had to find solitude. I was so used to being an extrovert, I had to figure out my introvert and spend as much time with me as I could. No radio, no TV, no running around town, no getting on the phone. Yeah, solitude. That was the only way I was going to figure out my next steps. Of course, I had to make some room, right? So this is how I lost 4,000 pounds. Step one. If I didn't love it, I couldn't keep it. It didn't matter how much I spent or how little I spent. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes getting rid of the things you spent the least on, that can be the hardest, right? Because you got a deal, and it was amazing. And it's hard to give up that trophy, right? Yeah. But I'm going to tell you what, as soon as I realized that I was way more of an investment than anything I could ever buy, it got way easier. Number two, was it an heirloom? I'm going to tell you, with 6,000 pounds of stuff, I was not collecting Chanel or Gucci or Prada. Had I been, we would not be here right now. So I didn't really have a lot of heirlooms. And then number three, did I need it? Okay, well if I needed it, I needed to keep it, and that was fine. But those are my three basic rules, and after 7 months of donating and selling, I lost 4,000 pounds. Seriously, this is actually an article in the paper, and I did lose 4,000 pounds. So here's the thing though, this whole process taught me about the relationship between physics and faith and attachments. See, we can attach to there are infinite possibilities in terms of what we can attach to. Feelings, people, ideas, fairy tales, the idea that things need to be one way. The problem is, according to physics, our capacity for attachments are limited. It's not infinite, it's finite. And so what ends up happening quite often is we attach to things we shouldn't be attached to, things that don't serve us anymore, and we just keep holding on to them, right? And so where faith came in was the understanding that if I let go, I would grow in the direction that I needed to grow. Not everything was going to be puppies and unicorns, but I would grow in the areas that I needed to grow in and get the experiences I needed. So I actually lost a whole lot more than 4,000 pounds. It's just not as easy to quantify this other stuff, right? But has anybody here been on a diet, lost some weight, and then got off the diet, and then gained that weight and more back? Yes, yeah, it happens, right? So I knew I wasn't just there to lose some weight and to figure some things out. I knew I was there to learn how to keep it off. So this is what I decided to do. Everything I would suck at. And this is why. I had leaned so far into my strengths that I had gotten to be like really lopsided. And I had to balance everything out. So, thing I suck at, number one, skiing. And this is what I learned. Pizza wedging down a mountain, completely petrified. I wasn't just afraid of careening down a mountain at breakneck speeds. I was afraid of letting people down, making a mistake, not making an A. And as much as I was joking around about Mr. Right, I was simultaneously afraid of meeting him and not meeting him at the same time. So I ran every chance I got. Quite the mental juggernaut. And so what I realized was that my biggest asset was also my strongest weakness. And my brain was even holding me back from listening to my intuition. Because, I mean, when you have a brain like this, why do you need your intuition anyway, right? Oy. So, that led me to thing I suck at, number two, yoga. So the second time I showed up to yoga, the instructor looked at me and he was just like, oh, you're back. Yeah, I think my yoga instructors still think that every time I show up. But I still show up. And I know it sounds like I probably didn't work out a lot before I got to Idaho, but I did. I was at the gym 5 or 6 days a week. But this is how I got most of my exercise. I ran from my problems, I ran my mouth, and I ran late. Guilty of all three. Also me. Couldn't spot a toxic anything to save my life. Conversation, person, job situation. I could fix anything, right? Brain like this. So, I thought I had it all figured out. And okay, so you might be thinking, maybe you weren't going to church. Maybe that was part of the problem. Like maybe that's why you were off a little bit. Well, actually, I did go to church, sometimes more than one. But when it came to dealing with my problems and dealing with pain, I was church of treat yourself to a warm chocolate chip cookie and a sale rack. Those two things could solve any problem in life. Any conversation with my mother, any job situation, any boy problem, I got it. Until I ran into death. So, I lost my dad and my job within 3 months of each other. And I wasn't just my father's daughter, I was his keeper. I kept his medications, I kept his hospital stays, his doctor visits. I had to explain what do not resuscitate meant. So, when I lost the two things in quick succession that I identified who I was as a person, that I identified with, I didn't know what to do. Because I could not run it. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't outsmart it. I couldn't come up with a creative solution for it. Death is just something you have to accept. So, I stopped working out. I gained 30 pounds. I wore black velour track pants every day. Stopped going out. I checked out. Online. All the time. The FedEx guy told me I was keeping them in business. So, I knew something had to change, and this was the solution to my problem. I just had to find my dream job. If I could find something I loved as much as I loved my dad, and I was as passionate about, and gave me a paycheck, I was good. And that's exactly what I did. I got a job in fashion. I did things with my career I never thought I would ever do. And I was living the life. I started losing weight. I thought I was getting my life back together again. Until I realized I needed that job to breathe. I needed the life I had to breathe. And so my identity had shifted from my father to this job, into this life. And I was on a roller coaster I really couldn't get off of. I didn't know how to get off of it. And so this is what happens when you don't know how to manage your emotions, and when you're not grounded in where you need to be grounded. And this is what yoga taught me. Pain is something we experience moment by moment, not faster, not slower. There's no reason to panic, there's no reason to run, and no reason to eat a cupcake. It's all going to be okay. Something else yoga taught me. My intuition is actually good. And so by getting into my body, I was able to get into my soul, which holds your intuition, and my heart. Here's something else I learned in yoga. Really hot guys go yoga. And so one day, this really hot guy was like, hey, you want to hike up a mountain? And I was like, yes, I want to hike up a mountain. Not really, but I said he was really good looking, right? So, thing I suck at, number 3, hiking up mountains. Here's what I learned. Everybody gets a bag. And I've already expressed to you guys how much I love bags, right? So, in your bag, we get the physical attributes, the personality traits, the intelligence, skills, talents. We get everything we need for ourselves. But those things just don't come out of the bag like that. We have to work on them. And so sometimes it's a lot easier to look at what's in everybody else's bag. And then it's easier to go back and look at what's not in our bag. And so while we think we're putting one foot in front of the other in life, what we're really doing is just getting dragged along by it. And there's a difference. And so as soon as I realized that I needed to put one foot in front of the other and focus on me, top of the mountain. And actually this photo is on page 71 of a hiking guidebook you can buy at REI. Not too shabby for the person that sucks at hiking up mountains, right? Stranger things have happened. So where did all this lead me to? Japanese anime. So this is the best analogy I could come up with. Voltron is this ultimate fighting force, and it's comprised of these lions, and they snap together, and they communicate with each other, and when they do, unstoppable. And this is what we can be like. But here's where I was at when I started this journey. Brain was a dictator, heart was so unruly I had to shove it in a closet, literally. My soul was dialed down to 0, and my body was for display only. So, of course I wasn't going to get as far as I wanted to go, right? So the next thing I learned is that life has as many layers to it as a really great trifle. And the next layer is this. We get time, we get energy, and we get money. And just like our capacity for attachments, there's a finite amount that we get. We don't know how much we're going to get. We don't know when we can lose any one of those 3 things. But as soon as I realized that, I got a lot wiser about how I used my time, my energy, and my money, and I started measuring those things against what I really wanted to accomplish in life. Obviously, when I started this journey, they were not aligned. So the next layer actually that I learned is that I ripped this straight out of a business course, guys, and there's a worksheet in your packet that addresses this. But I had to define the baseline for me as a person, and businesses have to define this as a business as well. What is your operational baseline? What do you need to do to keep the lights on? So for us, we have to figure out what we need to do to keep the lights on mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, as well as just pay our light bill, right? So what are the things we need to do? But as people, we get bored. And when I get bored, I go to Target. So businesses, when they just only focus on operations, they go out of business because you have to be attracting new customers. You have to be thinking of that next thing that you're going to be doing. So as people, we have to be doing the same thing. So strategy is the next layer. And I had to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to use the gifts that I was given. Businesses have to do the same thing, right? Well, even superheroes only have 24 hours in a day. So you've got to cut some things out. So I had to determine what the things out in my life that I had to cut out in my life in order to focus on what was operational and what was strategic. So, where did that lead me to? Well, now I have a lot to write about, right? So I am working on a book. I don't have any Chanel or Gucci or Prada, but I started off with one house and now I have two. I'm working on three. And I help feed 200 to 300 homeless people a month. It's not exactly what I want to be doing, but it's something I can do, and that's better than not doing anything. So that's where I'm at right now. Now, life is still life, so it's still frustrating. And sometimes when you think dating is supposed to look like this, and it really looks like this. I don't run, I don't panic, I don't go for a cupcake or try to drown myself in a bowl of queso, because it's not worth it. And I got to a point where I realized how worth it I was and how worth it you are, and that is how I lost 4,000 pounds and kept it off. Thank you.
Much, and I want to say so many things, but wasn't that amazing? Yeah. Wasn't that hilarious, that picture she pulled up for us? I think I see some attendees almost spit their water out. It was awesome. I was in the back. I saw it all. That was such a great message, Patty. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. We have a lot to think about. I'm thinking about cleaning my closet when I get home. How about you guys? What y'all thinking? Yes. All right.